Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. On this Earth Day special, Paul and I will be discussing how to conserve water, how to live a healthy life, and Paul's favorite, not drinking beer and drinking Pinot Grigio to burn off those calories. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good. How are you?
Very good. If people are watching live, our website is green and it has a tree in for the GFQ logo because it's Earth Day, and our web admin said, "Hey, you want to do something for Earth Day?" And I said, "Sure, do whatever you want." I didn't even know it was Earth Day. So this is how we're celebrating it. How you doing, Paul? Good? You look stressed today.
No, I'm all right. Kind of your average day, I guess. Average weekday. It's weird here because my kids are on vacation, but I'm not. And so...
Where are they?
I don't mean they're away. I mean they're on vacation from school.
Oh, from school, yeah.
Yeah, this part of the country, we have vacations in February and April instead of in March.
And they go back tomorrow?
Nope, they're off all week.
Oh, that's so weird because here, everybody goes back tomorrow. So
yeah, I mean,
that's weird. They got to standardize this thing. This is crazy.
I couldn't agree more.
This is crazy. So a couple things from last week's show. I made a total ass of myself, and okay. I claimed that I had Windows 8.1 on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Windows Phone 8.1. I did the update, and I had actually done an update. It unfortunately was not the update that I should have done. So here it is, finally.
Prereq, yes. Yeah.
Here it is. I've been using it all week. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty good. I mean, they've cleaned it up. It looks pretty. But overall, it's not this humongous difference from the prior version.
Yeah, which I'm actually pretty... Well, I should say there are a lot of small changes. One or two big changes. Obviously, Notification Center is a big deal. Although that's not going to impact you too much on a media player if that's how you're using that. And Cortana, but I mean, lots of little things, I'm hoping it makes updating the book easier. I guess we'll see. I'm going to start that soon, but
I don't know. I've been using it. I've been using it all week, and I guess it was my lucky week because I did this update and I spent a couple days playing around with this, and it's obviously nice, and it feels like a complete OS. Those little things help. Cortana helped. Like you said, the updates for the apps, that it's no longer a hassle to update them.
Yeah, that's huge. Right there.
I think that's and it's a very subtle change, but I think those things go a long way when you're trying to compete in a market which iOS and Android are kind of dominating. I don't even think that Android feels like a complete operating system, but I would kind of say that for iOS, this is a really solid OS, and I'm hoping that we see more people kind of switching over because they're kind of sick of Android and iOS over the next couple of years. I think that's going to be the big separation because this is the only mobile OS on the market that feels different.
Right.
When I'm using iOS and when I'm using Android, yeah, they're different operating systems, but there's still that, icon, click on the icon, go there. It's very similar in that sense. While you have this pretty thing here that nobody's buying, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, this is a topic I've sort of not written about in any decent way, but one of the things I've been kind of tossing around in my head is this notion that the integrated experiences stuff in Windows Phone is evolving, and in many ways, Windows Phone or Microsoft, has had to make these concessions to a few things, to app makers that want their apps to look like the apps on iOS and Android. They're not interested in a Windows Phone look and feel. And so we're starting to see that kind of stuff. The Facebook app is a good example.
Do you think that's the direction? Like, I understand that Microsoft wanted this unified look amongst every application that you're using, but do you think the individual feel for each application is the way to go, or do you think that the integration is the way to go?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. So I think there's a middle ground to be found. Microsoft pushed a very integration-heavy kind of vision for the original version of Windows 7. And what happened over time was that it succumbed to the fact that when you integrate stuff into the OS, it can never be updated. You have to wait until there's another version of the OS, and that's a problem. And so when you do things like integrate Facebook access into the OS, as Facebook evolves, which it does very quickly, the OS is increasingly out of date, and so people who use Facebook on Windows Phone turn increasingly to the app, which is just the same as it would work on any other platform. And so one of the things that is not very well understood, I wrote about this about a week ago, but there is a new kind of underlying architecture in Windows Phone 8.1 that allows apps to integrate with the OS. And what that allows you to do is have an app like a Facebook app or a Twitter app that provides those integration features into the People Hub, into the Photo Hub, and it's no longer part of the OS. And so if Facebook evolves, or Twitter evolves, or whatever other apps take advantage of this, those apps can evolve with the services, and so can the integration bits. And so, I don't know. The other aspect of it is I could sit here and kind of preach from on high about how I believe good design is this, and how integration is better than this, and blah blah blah. But the fact remains that there are billions of people who use smartphones every day, and they are used to this iOS, Android style of tap an icon, app loads, go back home, tap another icon, app loads. I mean, this is how they do things. And so, Windows Phone in some ways has had to devolve, I guess, to accommodate those people, because you're not going to get people, you just said Windows Phone is different, and it is different. And that's one of the things that's cool about it. But that also means it's unfamiliar to people that use smartphones. And for some people, it's just not okay. And so they've made some concessions along those lines as well.
Talking about the design, there's a couple things that kind of bother me. And you tell me if I'm wrong to kind of think this way. And I'd like to know what the audience thinks, because I'm coming from an outside. I have an outside perspective on this because I'm in the iOS experience, and I'm in the Android experience.
You have the normal perspective is how I think you should put it. I mean, kind of, because this is all new to me. And I like to discuss for the average person and how they're using it. So when I go into like the search for the icons, for the applications, I think they're just wasting so much space by having just one icon listed straight down, one application. Like, I think it might be better if they had, 3 or 4 of them next to each other. I'm trying to look at this on a phone, but
okay. So if I go to like search, not search, where do we go? Like, you scroll down and you hit the next to see all your applications.
And this is on in the apps list.
Yeah. So like the apps, I don't know if you could see here. So there you go. That's the apps list. Like, there's a bunch of, it's just long. Like, you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. I would change that. I mean, that I'm nitpicking at this point, really. The other thing that is weird for me is the people. So when you hit the people and then you see like all your contacts, like, I feel like with the contacts, they could fix that. They can make that a little prettier.
Yeah, this is one of the areas that has changed since 8, and it's funny because now the main contact list by default will only show you contacts that have phone numbers. Which is interesting, and I think maybe a reflection of the fact that a lot of us have way too many contacts on multiple services, and when you integrate them all together,
that's a major problem. Yeah,
like, it can get really messy.
That's awful, because I'm used to doing everything in Gmail. I keep all my contacts there. My contacts list is crazy organized. I mean, I have you're like that too. I think we discussed this years ago on how I like to have all the information, all the images updated. I sync everything to people's Facebooks, and I've really spent the time to do that. And I did that to my wife's phone a couple years ago, where I really spent the time. And then when she moved everything over to iOS, it got all wonky.
Right.
Like, stuff didn't transfer properly. So I've done it again for her. I've rebuilt her contacts list. And I have to tell you, Google probably, I haven't really spent too much time with the contacts on here, but Google does a much better job than iOS does.
On the phone.
For the contacts.
Yeah. Right. And oddly enough, the Google Contacts Management app in the latest versions of Android is modeled on the Windows Phone app. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, this, I would say from a visual standpoint, this thing has not really been upgraded since, the original version of this app. They've made modifications. Like I said, they show contacts with phone numbers only. They still do all the feed stuff if you integrate, Facebook and Twitter, in which now you do with apps. I think one of the things that Microsoft does a pretty good job of, like on my phone here, I have my Outlook.com contacts and my Facebook contacts. It will show me the picture that those people have on Facebook as their little photo,
Yeah.
and actually, I mean, frankly, the photos could be a lot bigger. This
Yeah,
does seem like
that's a weird thing. Yeah, that it's a little
it's not
small.
great. Yeah, it looks small to me, but it's not horrible. And I mean, scrolling through my own list, I actually do see a couple of people that don't have photos associated with them. Most of them are people who are not on Facebook, I guess, as I'm looking at it.
Does that drive
Some
you
of them-
insane?
No, I've learned to let go of this. I don't care anymore.
I delete people now. If there's no
You delete
updated
people?
photo, they're gone. They're out of my life. It's an
That's
unknown
funny.
number coming in because they don't have a photo associated. It drives me crazy.
I, you know, uh, Increasingly on the phone, what I found is, for example, the People Hub is one of those areas that, they have all this integration bits, right? And in this version, there's actually two layers of it because you get that kind of what's new list, which is a feed of whatever you have, installed. In my case, Facebook and Twitter. And so it's kind of a commingled feed of latest posts from those two services. But when I bring up your contact card, for example, and I think I used this as an example in an article, actually, I posted your phone number so everyone could see it, of course.
That's fine.
Just
call me.
Yeah, just call Andrew. He's not busy. There's a profile card or page or whatever, which has all that stuff: mobile phone number, text, yada yada yada. And I can interact with you in like 151 ways. But new to this version is this connect page, and that has in this case just Facebook. Well, because I don't have Twitter, I didn't add Twitter to the list, but you would be in here for both Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, so where's it connect so I can find it?
So what you should do is bring up my contact card because you'll see me in there, I would imagine.
So let's see.
So have you configured this phone for Facebook at least?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you should probably see me in there.
Let's see. Paul Thurrott. Paul Thurrott. Okay, so here you go. I see you. It says
So
call
go to the
mobile.
connect at the top. See, it's like profile and then connect.
Connect. Okay. Oh no, add app. I guess I don't have Facebook.
All right, so you don't. This means you haven't installed the Facebook
Okay.
app. So if you install the Facebook app or whenever it's released the new Twitter app, they will appear as tiles in there. And so when I tap on that tile, the Facebook app loads, but it doesn't just kind of load to Facebook. It loads to your page in Facebook.
Okay, so I loaded it now. It's loading to you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so that's cool.
Yeah, and this is what I mean by they're integrating through the app, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a lot of people don't like that because I think there were a lot of people who bought into the Windows Phone way of doing things. And now that this is just an app, they're like, well, I used to be able to do this all from within the People Hub, and then I could press back and I'd be back doing stuff in the People Hub. And, it actually still kind of works the same way, but now this stuff all happens through the app.
See, this is also it gets tricky with the context, and people are wondering like, why do you care about context? Because you'll go crazy if you start switching platforms and switching phones. Like a couple years ago, Google decided that they weren't going to sync your contacts. I mean, Google and Facebook were not syncing their contacts anymore. So
Right.
Android would not sync the latest photos. Sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. But devices like HTC, if you had an HTC Android phone, it would work. It's really inconsistent across the board where some devices work and some devices don't. It's still like that. Like right now with mine, it sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. So I have to download a third party, and the third party sometimes works and doesn't. When it tries matching,
why even stress over this? Like, the way I look at
because I'm insane, Paul.
right, but yeah. So like, if I were to go to the web right now and I go like, I'll just do this. In fact, to see what it says. If I go to Outlook.com and I look you up on Outlook.com, I mean, you're going to be in there in some capacity, like as a contact, right? There'll be some information in there, and so actually, I'll just bring it up. Andrew Zarian. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff because we have each other on Skype, and that's integrated into Outlook.com. Actually, it pulled in Facebook and Twitter stuff. So actually, there's a lot of stuff in here. In fact, in your case, I wouldn't have to add a Facebook account to my phone to get all this stuff because it's all kind of in there. Although by adding the Facebook app, I get that integration stuff. So I get the ability to go and post on your wall or send you a Skype. I'm sorry, a Facebook message or whatever it may be. But in this case, like in Outlook.com, I have all this stuff for you. But I guess I could worry about this. Like, let's say I just had the stuff I had for you. So maybe I have your email address, your phone number, maybe your address, a couple of things, whatever it is. You've configured Facebook with whatever information, a ton of it in many cases. I don't need to duplicate that in Outlook.com.
Yeah.
I just assume that you're keeping that up to date. I actually, when it's friends and family in particular, I find it slightly irritating that when they don't have things like their mobile phone number in there, because every once in a while, I may need to contact like a cousin or a friend I haven't talked to in a while.
And you don't have the number in your
and
phone.
all I have is their Facebook information, and they didn't fill it out for some reason. It's like, guys, seriously, that's what it's there for. Don't make me manage your contact information.
Yeah.
Just pull it in.
Do you think part of the problem is that this is the first time in tech history, I mean, technically, that we are in so many different interfaces at the same time? I mean, it's not just one account that we use to manage everything. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Google Chat, we're on Skype, we're on AIM, and
but this is the point of the cloud. Like this is a lot like the music collection stuff we've talked about in the past. Where you would kind of in a very anal retentive way, manage your MP3 metadata and pull your collection from PC to PC. I mean, one of the things I used to do was sit there. If I was getting ready for a trip, I would copy over a bunch of data to the laptop before I left, and one of those things would be my music collection. And I'd pull it into the Zune software, and then I'd go in and manually fix any of the album art that wasn't right and all this kind of stuff. I'd subscribe to the podcast I wanted to listen to so I could sync them to some device and all this stuff. I'd spend all this time on that. And then I would never access it off the laptop even once, on that trip. It's stupid. It's just a waste of time. And, contact management is the same thing. Once you put the stuff in the cloud, you kind of just have to not worry about it. It's going to be there.
It's there, and that's what it is.
Don't worry about it.
Someone in chat brought up something interesting, and I'd like to get the rest of chat's perspective on this. And whenever we do that Stitcher contest, for example, I get a crazy amount of email from people saying, "Hey, Andrew, I'd love to vote for you, but I refuse to use Facebook. I don't use Facebook. I don't use Facebook." And to me, I'm like, who doesn't have Facebook? But more and more, as I speak to a lot of the viewers, I find out that they do not have Facebook because of the privacy issues and how they don't want to provide Facebook with all this information. It seems like it's more people than you think that are not on Facebook.
Well, I mean, put it another way. More people than ever are using Facebook every day. It's not like Facebook usage is going down; it's going up. And so, it's possible within tech-savvy crowds. It's possible with certain young people. Facebook isn't cool or hip or whatever. But to me, Facebook is. I mean, actually, it's fair to say Facebook is my address book. I mean, I still do have. Well, it's hard to say what I have actually because I've integrated Facebook with Outlook.com. It would be an interesting exercise to remove that and see how few contacts I actually had solely in Outlook.com.
Let me see how much information you're providing on Facebook. I'm curious, like what you put in.
Yeah. It would be funny if it was like next to nothing because I just complained about my cousins who don't do this.
Okay, so you have your work. You have where you went to school. You have your high school. Your anniversary, who you're married to. Your political view.
What is my political view?
Independent Citizens Movement.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Because I'm like, a lot of people assume I'm some kind of like crazy liberal for some reason. And it's like, it's a little more nuanced than that. Okay. Anyway.
So you have your family, your cousins, but contact information, you have nothing.
I have nothing.
No phone number, no address, no email address.
Really?
Nothing. Yeah.
I'm going to fix that right now.
See, You're much better at keeping your Facebook smaller. I remember a couple years ago you kind of cleaned it out.
Hold on a second, though. So actually, I look at it. Oh, I see. Maybe I have it set up wrong. That stuff is all in there. It's perhaps just not.
It's probably not public.
Well, I don't want it to be public, but I would want it to be for my friends.
For your friends. Yeah, I mean, you're probably not just sharing it with anybody, but I had that stuff in my Facebook. I didn't have my address, obviously, but I had my phone number in there because I used to keep my Facebook pretty closed. And when we started doing the shows and, obviously I started adding more and more people to my Facebook, I started getting these wacky phone calls every now and then from people. Like, "Hey, Andrew, listen, I'm watching your stream and the video is choppy."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Who is this? How'd you get this number?" They go, "Oh, yeah, your number's on Facebook."
That's awesome.
And this guy just called, and that would happen. So I just shut that down. But
Yeah.
you have the total opposite thing where you don't accept everybody. You just add people that you know. Like I think you cleaned house a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, right, because what happened to me was I realized over time that I wasn't able to use Facebook like a normal human being. You know, a lot of times with online services in the beginning, I sign up for them because this is my job and I have to figure out what this thing is and use it and whatever. And one of the dumb things I would do, of course, is forget about a lot of these accounts. But Facebook is one of the ones that actually proved useful. But what I could see that was that by accepting every single friend request I got, it curtailed me behaving normally on Facebook because I don't necessarily want to post pictures of my kids in my yard, playing on, their toys or whatever when they're little, to thousands of strangers who I don't actually know. So yeah, I went through that process. I definitely burned some people. I mean, it took me several days to do this because I don't remember the number anymore, but I had thousands and thousands of people in there. And, I do things one way and other people do things a different way. But for me, Facebook is personal and it's my actual people I know by and large. And, Twitter is kind of the public thing, and so Facebook's kind of personal and Twitter's kind of work, and I don't post a lot of personal stuff on Twitter. And I don't post any work related stuff on Facebook, which I see people do all the time. I mean, that's, some people do that.
I have the total opposite view of Facebook for me because I consider myself, I'm somewhat public with the things that I do, and my work is pretty public. So I just add everybody. My wife, on the other end, is very close with her Facebook, and she doesn't add anybody that she has not met in person or had a conversation with. I mean, she refuses to do that because people get a little weird on there.
Yes, and your wife, she's a woman, and it's a different world for women than it is for men. And you should be careful. I mean, of course, that's just common sense.
I find it fascinating, how people perceive this because there are people that are totally private about this stuff, and in life, like I know people that do not, they're really private about stuff. They're really paranoid about stuff. They don't like to use their credit card places. You know what I found out actually last week, and Paul, you've gone to Europe. Is it? I was talking. A caller called in on our Friday show, and he was talking about how he came to America for the first time. He was in New York, and he was shocked that you give your credit card to someone and they walk away with it.
Yep.
And in Europe, that does not happen.
Right. So for a couple of reasons, but one of them is that in Europe, they actually have really strong privacy laws and whatnot. But a lot of times in Europe, they'll have a little machine they bring out to the table, and you do everything right there. And think about it. That's in the old-fashioned way of doing things. The guy walking away from the table and going out back is how credit card theft would occur. He just can make a scan of your card. He can even just put a piece of paper over it and rub a pencil over it just to get the number.
Just get the number,
off of it. I mean, letting someone walk away with a credit card is actually not very smart. But that's kind of going away here, depending on where you are.
I guess, right?
Depending on the establishment,
Yeah, like at the Apple store, they just swipe it right in front of you.
Sure.
On an iPhone, they're just doing it that way.
It's getting there. We don't have the chip and pin system they have out there, which enables a kind of a two-factor authentication kind of thing of sorts for credit cards, which is another layer of security. And I think we will. As there are so many credit card processing scams, even though it's expensive to update all the machines here and just kind of update that infrastructure, I think it's going to happen. But one of the things that happens to us when we go to Europe is, depending on the situation, you can do something like you arrive kind of bleary-eyed in Paris at 5 o'clock in the morning and make your way over to the train station, and you want to get on the train and head into the city, but nothing's open because it's 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and they have these kiosks that are like electronic machines, like we have here, except they only take chip and pin credit cards. And as an American, you don't have one. And if you don't know this is happening, you don't know to show up with some cash in the form of coins, and you can't use the machine. And so you're kind of on your own. You can take a taxi. Someday that will be better, and that obviously that's a situation that doesn't, burn everybody. But, like you were saying, the difference with bringing this thing up to the table or taking it up back, I think all of these things are going to change and it will become more common.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that are paranoid about that. And then they go on social media and, social networks, and they start posting the most insane, erratic stuff.
Yeah.
I love to. One of my things that
What are
I
you trying
enjoy
to say,
doing.
Andrew?
Paul, you're out of control on Facebook. I'm just telling you. One of my things that I love doing is getting a glass of wine and
Yeah.
just watching someone have a total meltdown on Facebook after a breakup. I think it's so fascinating.
There's a lot of stuff on Facebook that I find crazy. I mean, obviously, there's the simple kind of innocuous stuff. A lot of people post photos of their cats, and I've posted a couple pictures of my cats.
I do a lot of dog pictures. A lot of dog pictures.
But I get the kind of vibe from people that their animal is the cutest animal in the world, just like their kid is the cutest kid in the world. Excuse me. Sorry. Trying to plug something in here. And, you want to shake people sometimes and say, you know what? No offense, but you're not exceptional. Your kid's not exceptional. Your animal is mangy looking, and
Your kid is average at best.
yeah. We're not looking at a Nobel Prize winning person here. So whatever. I mean, it's Facebook. I mean, that's what people do. I post a lot of pictures of food, but I don't, to be clear, I don't post pictures of ham sandwiches and Cheerios. I post pictures of crazy sushi meals or things that you can't get in other parts of the world or the country.
Sure.
And to me, traveling, I mean, that's kind of a big part of that experience anyway. It's the differences and things. And I don't know. It's like I said, I wouldn't be comfortable. I'm obviously kind of out there and transparent and all that kind of stuff in the world. But, when it comes to my wife and my kids, I'm not super comfortable with putting them out in front of everybody. And I know they wouldn't be happy about that. And so I do that stuff on Facebook in front of people that I know, and not on Twitter. And I that's the way I handle it. But, the people I know have to put up with the sushi pictures. And, I mean, if you want to, you can follow me on Untapped. I post about beer, I don't post about beer, but I check in beer there. I only check it. I've kind of stopped checking in duplicates because I feel like that's kind of pointless. So I just post, I only post when it's something new, but, anyone's invited to do that. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's exceptional enough. If I go on a trip, for example, and I'm taking pictures with some new Nokia camera, I'll throw a couple of those on Twitter just as a way to kind of show how nice the camera is,
All right. So I'm just thinking about this stuff, and we'll move on now because I could talk about it for hours on how people their behavior is morphed into something bizarre because of these social networks, and people behave in ways that they never would.
Yeah. So some people, they need it, like, I don't live on Twitter day to day. If I'm doing something I think is interesting, I'll maybe throw it or Facebook. I'll throw it up on Facebook. But one thing I've noticed with some of my friends is when they post something on Facebook, they then obsess over Facebook because they have to see who has liked it,
Who's liked it, who responded. Yeah,
they get some kind of like affirmation out of it, and that's probably a very normal human thing and all that kind of stuff. But there's a kind of a curious, needy quality to it that I feel vaguely uncomfortable about. And, I don't know. There are even people I care about a lot in the real world that I've kind of hid on Facebook because the stuff that they post is so cringe-inducing. Yeah. It's just. I
mean, you learn so much about people, and either you realize like, wow, I thought this person was normal, and they're insane, or you realize, oh my God, how does this guy have the job that he does because he could barely spell? That's another thing you discover that they're like,
Yep.
There's somebody on my Facebook. I'm not gonna say who it is. It's a friend, relative, someone like that. And this guy has had a great career and great life, and he just cannot write. I mean, like the stuff that he says, it's so bizarre. And I'm like, maybe he's drunk, maybe he doesn't know how to use his phone. But like, it's like at 9:00 in the morning at work, and he's like making a Facebook update, and I'm like, how did you get this far in life?
Right.
It's fascinating. Paul, let's talk about our Patreon campaign before we go into something else.
Okay.
We've launched our Patreon campaign. I saw that two people actually donated right now. I didn't see who it is, but we're at $280 a week with 131 patrons. People are donating money, and it's unbelievable. And we have a couple goals set up. Like if we get to 1,000 per week, we're going to do ad-free, no more ads. 2,000. The live stream is going to be free. no ads in the live stream, which we're working on. I'm trying to get Ustream to give us a good deal on having no ads on our live stream. But if you pledge, you get access to a special after show we're going to do after the show. We're going to we're going to record a little show afterwards. We're going to talk about whatever. It's going to be called What the Talk. Thanks to a viewer, Gary, I think you said, right? Gary named it.
Yeah, Gary Sherry. Yep.
Yeah, Gary named the show, and we're going to go with it. I think it's a great name. So we're launching this. We have a lot of goals set up. We would love to do some live shows in New York if we reach certain goals. We want to do monthly giveaways where we give away anything from a Surface to an Xbox if we reach that goal. So we have a lot of stuff coming up. All we ask for is $1 or less. I mean, you could donate a little less too if you that's too much for you. We're at $280. I'm hoping to be at $300 by the end of the week. That'd be great if we are. And I just want to thank you guys for supporting it and donating, because it's crazy to think people actually care about a show. It's insane.
I care about the show.
You do. Yeah, I know you care. But like other people that are not doing the show
that
actually
weird,
care.
yeah.
And I love doing it, and I want to give as much as we can, and hopefully we will continue doing what we're doing, and we'll make some money on this and remove ads totally from the show. So I just want to give a little plug for that, a little quick plug for that. So Paul, last week I was talking about how my Mac almost died, and I went through this whole ordeal, and a lot of people wanted to see that crazy SATA connector that I was talking about in the Mac. So this is it. This is their SATA connector.
Yeah, it's all flat as it would be. Sure.
Okay. So here's the end.
Yep.
And then here's the other. This is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant to map into the exact topography of the inside of the laptop or whatever.
So this is it. And apparently this is what went bad, because I got a replacement one on eBay for like $9. And the thing works great. So in the meantime,
that actually fixed your problem.
Fixed my problem. So what I was actually using in the meantime was this.
Yeah, like an external deal to.
So this converts the DVD drive, their super drive,
I see.
A
which can also be useful, right? If you want to add a second hard drive.
Yeah, I mean, this is great if you want to add a second hard drive, and I just happen to have this laying around. I ordered it 3 years ago, and I never did it because I didn't put a second drive in. But this is what saved me. And
there must be a version of that just has a battery.
Oh, was a secondary battery?
Yeah, there must be.
No, I wonder.
I had something like that for at least one laptop.
I mean, the problem is I took it out because it's a little heavy because it's metal. Yeah. But they have cheaper ones too that are plasticky, and you could use that. But this is what I used, and that's what kind of saved me, because it was not good to lose all that data and to kind of panic that it's all gone. Paul, couple things I want to talk to you about.
Yes, sir.
I saw Mary Jo on the front page of CNET. Mary Jo wrote an article about Microsoft speeding up the release cycles even more.
Yeah,
for Windows.
Yeah.
And they're saying 8.2, if that's what they're going to call it, may come out in September.
Right. I mean, this is based on a leak from that WZOR guy on Twitter, and I don't know anything about this other than to say this isn't a huge leap beyond what we already knew. I mean, they had announced the start menu and the floating window stuff would come as an update to Windows 8.1 sometime. Well, sometime. They never said when, right? And that left them a lot of wiggle room. And so it could be Windows 9, it could be Windows 8.2, it could be Windows 8.1 Update 2. They could call it whatever they want. I think that was the point. And so my expectation was always that they would, in fact, deliver this kind of stuff as early as possible. And I think that was the one kind of takeaway from Build, in the sense that no one said this explicitly, but the kind of implicit message I got was that, yeah, we have the schedule, but we really do want to deliver this stuff as quickly as possible. Why not break it out and deliver it, when we can? And so it wouldn't surprise me if we saw something in the fall that they could call anything. It doesn't matter what they call it, update 2, whatever.
But is this going to be something just for 8, or are they going, this is the new way that Microsoft handles any kind of update where, major fixes, major updates are going to always happen every couple months, rather than, them fixing 8 and kind of changing people's perception on it?
No, it's not just 8. I mean, every product's a little different. There isn't one update schedule for everything. But it's funny because different teams at Microsoft have talked about different, kind of updating schedules. For example, we know that almost every month, not every month, but almost every month, the Xbox guys will release a system update for Xbox One, usually tied to Patch Tuesday, which is the typical day that Microsoft releases all of their security updates. On that same Patch Tuesday, almost every month, not every month, but almost every month, Microsoft has released a set of Surface firmware updates as well. And those often come with a bunch of new functionality or improved functionality, whatever. And those have been very valuable and kind of show you what Microsoft is like as a PC maker. It's really neat. Something you certainly don't get from Dell or HP or any of the other companies. Xbox Music, which is part of Windows Phone 8.1. A lot of people who've updated to that have noted that the app is really slow. It's obviously has performance and reliability issues. Microsoft has said our plan is bi-weekly. We're going to update this app. And they have been updating Xbox Music on other platforms like Android and iOS pretty frequently. I wouldn't say bi-weekly, but at least once a month since those apps debuted probably last year sometime. So, they're never going to admit with Windows or promise with Windows some specific update. Obviously, Windows is updated every month through Patch Tuesday, but those are typically not new features. It's typically fixes.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to stop them from updating that ad hoc however they want to. And I would say the big part of Windows, just like Windows Phone, just like iOS or Android, isn't so much the kind of the goop of the OS. It's the apps. It's the stuff that people actually interact with every day. Those can be updated at any time. And we see that on Windows. We see that on Windows Phone already. Windows Phone 8.1 came out a week or two ago. They've updated the calendar app already. They're going to update the Xbox Music app soon. These things get updated. This is the new world we live in. It's kind of like servicing apps as if they were online services.
Yeah. Well, technically, I mean, everything has become an online service. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
conceptually,
yeah. Everything is connected to the cloud in some sense, and that's really the way to do it. But I'm actually surprised that I thought we would get an update every year. But if if they're looking at two major changes a year, every year for an operating system,
I don't think they are looking at that. I think they're looking at two very specific changes they want to make because people have asked for it, and this is important. And so they're looking at how they can update. I don't think this means like, now going forward, we're always going to have two major updates every year. Like, I don't really think that has nothing to do with what they're doing. I think this is something very specific. They saw the reaction that they got at Build. It was probably even better than they expected. And their intention now, I believe, is to deliver that stuff together or one at a time as quickly as they can, because that will make people so happy. And the original plan was Windows 9. But, when you think back to just a couple of years ago when Steven Sinofsky was running the show, remember, people had asked him, okay, so Windows 8 is going to come out 3 years after Windows 7. Okay, so what about the next one? And he said at the time, I think 3 years is a good time frame for a new Windows release. That's not the reason he's gone, but for all of his kind of forward-leaning stuff, one of the things that guy couldn't wrap his head around was the notion that Windows needed to evolve much more quickly than that. And so I rather than sort of try to believe that Microsoft is on some schedule, like of every 3 months we're going to do something, or every 6 months we're going to do something, or every year we're going to do something. I actually think it has nothing to do with any of those timeframes. I think they will update as needed.
Yeah.
If Windows 9 or Windows 8.2 or whatever it's called gets to a point where everyone's happy, basically, and the big updates can come through those app updates. Maybe it will be a year before we see the next update after that, the next substantial update. Who knows? But I don't think they're owning up to a particular schedule they intend to maintain.
It's interesting. It's a totally different way for them to handle this, and people are criticizing them on that, and
right.
They say, well, too many changes is not a good thing to constantly,
Sure.
to constantly have to deal with. I do feel that when they get the start menu back, that may cause a lot of confusion for people.
Well, it's who knows? I mean, how they're going to present it. I don't think that. Well, I shouldn't say I actually don't know, but I would be surprised if they just kind of threw it on. I mean, I think it won't be the default for most people, and B, even if it is the default, say on desktop type systems, they're not going to take a system that was up, we had the start screen in Windows 8, had the start screen in Windows 8.1, had the start screen in Windows 8.1 with update, and now you're on the start menu again. Like, I don't think they would do that to people. I think people who are upgrading across the board are going to retain what they have. Microsoft's usually pretty good about that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I think the way they've set up the default so far has been smart. I think they're going to continue doing that. There are people who really want this, and they'll be able to turn it on. Surprise, there are people who don't care anymore, and they're fine with the way it works. So
That's funny how that's happened, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, I think with 8.1, because it got a little, mouse friendly, 8.1 update, the last update, that most people don't have, but I have. But from what I've seen, a lot of people saying, well, this makes it a lot better, actually. These little changes have made it easier for us. So they're not clinging on to the start menu. We need the start menu back. But for many people, it may be what drives them to update. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's a tricky thing that they're doing. Is it a step backwards? I've been one guy that wants the start menu back, but
Yep.
is it necessary?
Then how could it be a step backwards?
Yeah, for me, it's not.
I think it's
for me. It's
a lot
not.
of people. So Mary Jo and I on Windows Weekly has spent a lot of the past year talking about Microsoft's plans at the time. Microsoft does still have plans for kind of a desktopless version of Windows that's touch centric and all that kind of stuff. And you could say, well, you already have that. It's called Windows Phone, and there's something to be said for that. I mean, maybe there's some future of Windows Phone plus RT that's gets rid of the desktop and only has these kind of modern apps and universal apps or whatever. That's not changing, but the thing that changed was that it was just sort of an acknowledgement that there are 1 billion plus people using Windows on regular computers, and as it turns out, that there's still going to be a wide audience of people, large audience of people using Windows on those types of computers. And Windows 8, as originally envisioned, was not optimal,
for
on
those
kinds of systems.
Yeah. Has there been any news on the future of RT? I never asked you if you got any information from Build or what they're saying about RT, because
so
a lot of people are asking.
Yeah, I mean, Windows RT was notable for its absence at Build. If you were to go over the keynote addresses and look for the term Windows RT, it was barely uttered. Terry Myerson talked about something sort of new called Windows for the Internet of Things, which appears to be just a continuation of the work they've been doing with embedded versions of Windows. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, what they've said is they're still committed to it. Windows 8.2 or Windows 9 or whatever they call it will come in an RT rendition. Obviously, no PC makers are jumping on board this platform at all. And so we'll see. I mean, I do think for those touch-based systems, if the ecosystem is mature enough and the underlying platform has the performance, that the benefits of that thing suddenly become very readily apparent. On the other hand, I mean, there's something to be said for Intel figuring out the power management and reliability and battery life stuff, and then giving you the desktop compatibility if you happen to need that as well.
I mean, they've gotten better. Intel's gotten a lot better over the last 2 years with but management of your battery life and the performance of these Intel, smaller system on a chip type devices.
Yep.
But has that affected their direction with RT, where now, rather than RT being at the forefront of, mobile computing for Microsoft, now it's, well, Intel's going to be able to do this, so why not just do that? Why not just offer pro
because
versions?
The problem with an Intel device in this kind of future world, and this is just a theory at this point, is that it does have that ability to run those apps or those browser plugins or whatever it is that could be malicious and steal your data and steal your identity and render the computer inoperable. So, we look at that as kind of a benefit. People have been around the PC world for a while, want that stuff. They want to be able to run iTunes. They want to be able to run Chrome. They want to be able to run Photoshop, whatever it is. But, as the ecosystem matures, maybe that stuff becomes less important. And then you have a system where it's kind of a known safe kind of deal, where you know that this thing is going to be reliable. It's not going to degrade in performance over time. There's no way you're going to download something that's going to compromise the system in any meaningful way. The RT platform, just by virtue of the fact that it doesn't have that Wild West Intel stuff and all the desktop stuff is by definition safer. And so, the other stuff has to catch up, the performance, compatibility, all that kind of stuff. But once it does, we'll see. Al Berenson maybe, I think, had made the comment that there's no reason why Windows RT has to be based only on ARM. Like there could be an Intel version of Windows RT.
Yeah.
Maybe someday they'll remove the desktop and then they could have a version of it on Intel too. And yeah, fair enough. But we don't know anything about that.
I think they're not doing that at all, right? RT's
No.
exclusively on ARM.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that is interesting. Why? Why they wouldn't do
it's
that.
the mobile device. It's the device version. It's the version that targets device platforms.
There's just so much happening right now, and I think it's like a weird, awkward stage that they're in when it comes to this. And
I'll tell you, by the way, one thing that would make RT put it over the top for me, especially on like a mini tablet, let it run Windows Phone apps. And maybe now with this universal app capability, what will happen is a lot of app developers, game developers, perhaps, although that is sort of a side issue, will port their apps to this kind of universal app platform and make them available across the board. And rather than thinking of it as running Windows Phone apps, you're just running apps that happen to run on both platforms. But games are actually one area where Windows Phone is still just kicking Windows' ass. As far as like that stuff. I mean, Windows Phone has an amazing collection of games. Getting those available on like 8-inch Windows tablets would be pretty amazing.
would it have been easier for them, or would it have been a smarter decision to just run Windows Phone on these devices? Just run the Windows Phone OS on 8-inch
right.
devices.
So when this decision was made, there was a different regime in place at Microsoft, and those two OSs were not developed by the same teams. And so that team did what made sense for them at the time. I think the current team, which is the Windows Phone team, right, in many ways, would have done things differently if they had been in charge at the time. But what they've done is now kind of adopted this system that's already in place. And so I suspect, without knowing explicitly, that Terry Myerson in particular is spending a lot of time and effort trying to bring those platforms closer together in ways that make sense.
I mean, it would have just been one ecosystem that you have to cultivate over the next couple of years, rather than having two separate ones.
I mean, I think So 8.2, 9, however this thing evolves. I mean, I think you're going to see further steps in that direction. New versions of the SDK, new versions of Visual Studio that make this kind of thing easier. And I know that this year, one of the things we'll see is the universal app stuff happen, and also the licensing stuff, which, by the way, has already happened for a couple of apps. I can't remember the other one, but the famous one, of course, is that Halo Spartan Assault game, which is available on multiple platforms. It's Xbox 360. Actually, I think it might be 360 and Xbox One, Windows Phone, and on Windows, right? People who bought the Windows Phone version later wanted to get the version on Windows, but because they were technically two separate apps, they had to pay for it again, and a lot of people complained. And the way it works now is if you buy the app, I can't help you if you already bought it, but if you bought one of the apps but not the other, you can now go to the App Store on the other platform and just get it for free, because now they have the licensing underlying it, even though that app is not technically a universal app.
It's so tricky. I mean, and then you look at Apple, and their ecosystems are totally separate, and their app store kind of sucks on the Mac.
Well, it's but it's
nobody's developing for that at all.
Yeah, it's funny because at the time when they released that, I looked at it, and they did the same terms that they have in the App Store for iOS, and I thought that they had kind of made the right technical decision. The problem is that really the Mac is kind of past its prime for that kind of thing, and the big Apple app developers like Adobe don't want to. They're not going to give like 5 PC usage rights on Adobe Photoshop.
Yeah.
That's just not how their business model works, and so you see people not supporting it. Oddly enough, on the Windows side, for all of the complaints about the Windows App Store, I think they've done a better job. Well, not that they did a better job, but I think it's been more successful, and will continue to be more successful.
You know what's fascinating? Like in the Mac store, right? Because when Windows 7 came out, I was screaming that, oh wow, if they had their own app store, this would make things so much better. They don't have to worry about viruses as much and wrong downloads when you go. Let's say if I'm searching for Skype, I could just go into the Windows store and download Skype from there.
Sure.
And on the Mac, that does not exist. Like there is no Skype download in that app store. A lot of
In
apps
the
are
App
not
Store.
on there. Yeah, a lot of apps are not on there. And I guess it's
Right.
because of their terms of service. Maybe they don't want you to replicate the application if you have it someplace else. And there's something weird going
you
on
probably
there.
have to add stuff to an app to meet certain technical requirements. So maybe in the case of Skype, one of the things you can do, I'm just guessing, but one of the things you can do in Skype is buy Skype credit so you can make long distance phone calls. And
Yeah.
technically speaking, if they made that available through the store, you'd have to have some facility where Apple got 30% of that money. And, they may not want to do that, or they just haven't done it, or whatever it is. But
On Windows,
yeah,
do you think that would have been a good direction to go a couple of years ago, where they had their own store and you just go there and you download your stuff rather than searching for it?
I mean, they did a couple of years ago come out with that store, but it's for Windows 8.
For Windows 8, yeah.
You can't just build an app store and hope people are going to come. I mean, some app stores on Windows have been successful, like the Steam store for games. Some have not, like that Intel App Store, which went nowhere fast. You can't just build an app store. I mean, the other issue I think is that on Windows, like on the Mac, that's not where the development is. It's all in these mobile platforms. And so there are these kind of heavy legacy apps that are really big and complicated, like Office and Photoshop, that run on those legacy PC and Mac platforms. But there aren't a bunch of people scrapping up to make the next big app. Like the next big app's not going to run on Windows and the Mac. It just isn't. It's just the way the world is. And I actually think that's part of the reason why it's so cool, if they ever do it, for like a small tablet from a Windows tablet to run, a phone app or phone game, especially. I think that would be an amazing thing. Obviously, an iPad can run iPhone games. Most companies or developers will create versions specifically for the iPad, but you do have that capability.
So like Skype, for example. Skype has a mobile app, a desktop app, and a Windows 8, Metro app. They have all three of
They
them.
have more than that. They have a web client,
Web
Outlook.com.
client.
They have
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. Yep.
So for someone like them, when they develop, let's say the mobile app, it's going to be kind of tricky to incorporate that same UI across all their systems.
Yep.
So how do you think something like Skype would work if you download the mobile version? Do you have access to the same exact interface, or are they gonna change it depending on the device?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know as much on the iOS side, but in Windows they have this notion of they have various ways of doing this. I mean, they have capabilities, in this Metro environment that they're not calling Metro, where the app can reflow its layout based on the orientation of the screen and the size of the screen and the pixel density of the screen and all that kind of stuff. And with some tweaking, you can have the UI be different. I mean, I don't think it's a super different than creating like a mobile version of a website. I mean, you're basically just targeting a specific kind of form factor and presenting it in a certain way with the same back end. But yeah, I mean, again, not a lot of people are doing it, but it just happened. I mean, this universal app thing, I think, is the first step to a kind of a happy future for that kind of stuff. Just making it easier on developers to target multiple form factors and at no cost, essentially. I mean, it's a little simple to say that, but I mean, I think a lot of people, even people who are Windows Phone developers, looked at Windows 8 and said, there's a lot of work to get my stuff over there, or vice versa. And now with universal apps, they have this chance to make that a lot easier. So, we'll see. This is going to be the first year for universal apps on Windows.
Yeah, listen, they have the opportunity to do something that other people have not been able to, because they don't have the ability to create a universal app that works across different platforms. Apple's not doing it, and they probably can't do it, really. They can't do it as well as Microsoft can. Android definitely... the direction they're going in, I don't even understand with this Chromebook stuff, because they have Android, and Android is being developed for, and then they have Chrome OS, which...
what was it Tim Cook said about Windows 8? It was like combining a refrigerator with a toaster, right? Kind of belittled it. Microsoft's Frank Shaw had a nice response to that. I think he said something along the lines of, actually, there is a product category called a toaster oven, and those sell quite well. Thank you very much. When you can run Metro apps on Windows, interesting things happen. And I think for people who run traditional computers like I do, whether it's on a big screen like this or an Ultrabook, that stuff just becomes more viable when you can do that, and that's coming.
Yeah.
I don't know about this in particular. I keep talking about Windows Phone apps on Windows. I still really want this, but I would consider doing things like run the Windows Phone version of Xbox Music, which would be like this little kind of portrait-oriented floating window on my desktop, and it's something I could more comfortably squeeze off to the side while I was working in a Word document or a web browser or whatever I might be working
Rather than
in.
you having to go into a whole separate interface and taking up the entire screen.
I actually think that stuff, and if you think back to Windows Vista when they had that sidebar with the little widgets or gadgets, I guess we call them gadgets in Windows.
Yeah.
Those kind of things are neat, and I think these little mini apps, that you have on the phone would be so cool. I'm really kind of shocked that Apple has. I would be shocked if Apple hasn't considered doing this on the Mac. I mean, I just think there's so much usefulness there.
You know what else is the problem on the Mac? If you think about it, what screen size do you think is the most popular Mac screen size? Probably 13-inch.
Yeah, certainly 13.
Your screen real estate. You're not working with a lot, so
Right.
you got to be really careful on what you're giving people because it becomes really cluttered. I have a 13-inch here, and I got it because it's convenient for me to take to bed and be on there and working rather than a big monster laptop. But you run out of screen space really quickly.
Well, the other issue is resolution, right? So you might have a Retina. I don't know if you have a Retina.
I don't have a Retina. I have that crap resolution from 10 years ago.
The computer they're selling at 13 inches is a MacBook Air. And a MacBook Air today has a low resolution screen. It's like 1600 by 900, I think.
It's actually higher than my MacBook Pro. Remember that bizarre the screen resolution on...
Oh, because you have the 1280 by 800.
I have 1280 by 800, and the Air has... It's
16 by 9, I think is what it is.
So, yeah, it's higher.
Like a Retina class MacBook Pro or the PCs we now see on the Windows side have 2560 by 1400 or 3284, whatever it is, by some crazy resolution. Once you get up to those high pixel densities, even on a 13-inch display, you can kind of pack more stuff in there. And again, like phone apps would be just nice over on the side. I mean, I really do think that'd be useful. I think a lot of people would be very excited to do something like that.
Before we end the show, Paul, can we talk about how this concept of integrating phone calls on your other devices has not happened yet? Like you can't take your phone calls on your tablet
kind of push it
and
over
on your
to another
laptop.
device.
Yeah, like you can't do that yet, and it drives me nuts because you can't. I still cannot fathom that is not happening. Where my phone rings, I have the option to pick it up on my laptop, my tablet, or that. I'm not talking about Skype. I'm actually talking about...
Yeah, no, I mean, Windows Phone 8.1 adds the ability to push a phone call into a Skype conversation, right? So you could change it from an audio-based phone call, like over the actual phone network, to an IP-based Skype audio chat or video chat, which is interesting, but it doesn't give you the ability to go to a different device. I was just thinking about something like this yesterday because, as you know, I was testing my microphone issues, and one of the ways I tested it was I just brought my old Ultrabook back up to Windows 8.1, updated it, started installing apps. And when we were talking yesterday, I was actually using like the Metro version of Skype because I hadn't installed the desktop version, which is the one I usually use. And honestly, it's not a huge deal. Like it's funny because I could chat with you on my main computer, but we were doing audio chat over on the other computer, and that actually works. You can do two things at once. Like, sure, I don't know about handing it off per se. I guess we could see what it would be like to be on a call with you and then call you from the other computer. I don't know if that would work, and I have no idea what it would do. It would
the entire universe would collapse,
kill itself. Yeah, exactly. It would go into some like infinity.
But
loop
I mean,
kind of
if
thing.
you go back like 10, 15 years ago, every one of those like future computing was that, and obviously they didn't comprehend how things would evolve, but it was always, a phone call comes in, you have the option to pick it up on whatever you want, and it's not really a hassle. And that is still, Skype does that, sure, but unless you're using, I guess, you know what, you could do that with FaceTime also, but it's not really a phone call. Like, you don't have the option to make a phone call over IP or
Yeah.
Like when I'm on Wi-Fi, I should be able to just do IP calls. That's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, so Windows Phone does have that capability. In fact, that's an integration point. Like, you don't see a lot of VoIP clients on Windows Phone per se, but they can replace the phone dialer. I mean, you can just use, VoIP. It's a capability. I think it's
Yeah.
just something that no one has made seamless yet. But I think we're going to get there. It's funny. I just wrote something about about this. I was remembering, that Star Trek movie from the 1980s where Scotty walks up to the Mac and he picks up the mouse and he says, "Computer on." And everyone laughs. It's really funny. And honestly, we're still at the point now where computers can't be turned on with voice control, right? Obviously, the Xbox, you can walk in and say Xbox on, it comes on. That's kind of neat. And we have voice control on our phones. That's interesting. But when you think about it, like what's the craziest thing about that scene? Why would this guy from the future assume the computer needed to be turned on?
Yeah, why isn't it on? Yeah.
I mean, he deals with like this massive artificial intelligence that's always just there. It is what you're describing, where he could be in any room talking.
They're conserving energy, Paul.
No, I mean, like, honestly, I have to come to the conclusion that the people who made that movie did it for the audience, because in 1986, if you had a Commodore 64 or a Mac Plus or whatever you had, I mean, this thing was not an appliance. It was a big hunk of metal, and it was dumb, and you absolutely turned it on and off. It wasn't connected to a worldwide network. The audience in the 1980s wouldn't have they had no problem with the time travel part of the story, or the fact that they were bringing back a giant whale to the future.
Yeah.
But the notion that a computer could just be on all the time was beyond
crazy.
their imagination.
Well, I mean, it's still like that for a lot of people, Paul. I know tons of people that turn their computers off when they're done using it. And I'm like, why? Why do you turn it off?
I don't know.
And they go, well, I don't want to use electricity. Well, people still think computers. People still believe that computers are just.
Well, that's what you have it for. What do you? I don't know. Okay, but
people still think it's sucking up. I mean, all this electricity that their bill's going to go up by hundreds of dollars.
A computer built even just a few years ago probably is sucking up electricity. I mean, it depends on how it's built. I mean, the Xbox One is a kind of a modern computing device, or smartphones, which are very, because they run primarily on battery power and are meant to be efficient. RT devices or modern Macs and PCs, or have crazy power management built into them, even the ones that are plugged into the wall all day long. I mean, they do sit there and sip electricity. There's no doubt about it. But
it's not this astronomical number that people. I mean,
no, you can't. Your meter is not running in a circle out on the street.
It's not like running.
It's not like a hot tub. I mean, it's it's smarter than that.
Oh my God. I just imagine my in-laws, my Jessica's grandparents they come in here and they go, "Oh my God, you got all these computers. Your electricity bill has to be insane." I'm like, first of all, in this house, the gas and electric is like $1,000 a month.
Sure.
But that's a whole separate issue. But this is very little impact on that bill. Having the laptop and a couple computers plugged in all the time, that's not really doing much damage and costing me that much money. It's not this crazy, it's not like running your air conditioner all day long. But they've gotten even better too, air conditioners. I mean, think about what they were like 15 years ago compared to now.
Yep.
Energy Star rated everything, Paul.
Same thing with cars, lots of hybrids, lots of pure electrical vehicles now. I mean, it's a different world.
Yeah, I don't know, but my Infinity's, I have a 2012 Infinity and I get 10 miles a gallon on that thing.
Yeah, my car gets like 17 miles a gallon.
It's such BS. Like, 28 miles per gallon
I'm
highway.
actually gonna just hook a smokestack up to it, just so it's clear what's happening. I don't know what the heck is going on.
Oh, God. All right, it's time to wrap up the show. If you're watching live, guys, we're going to stick around and record What the Talk, our bonus show that we're going to be doing for Patreon and the people that are supporting our Patreon campaign. Little tip: if you watch live, we're not turning off the feed, so you can continue watching it. If you want,
dare you?
How dare
we're
giving this away live. If you're listening to the podcast and you want to listen to that show, head over to patreon.com/whatthetech. You could donate to our campaign. We have a bunch of goals. The more we reach those goals, the better it is for everybody. We're trying to cut ads on the show. We're trying to do more shows. We're going to be doing a call-in show. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening. And you could go to the website and check out the goals. That's whatthetech.com/Patreon. Of course, all things Paul, go to winsupersite.com. Phenomenal website. I'm a big fan of it. I go there every day. Let's see what's on there right now, Paul.
I go there every day, too.
Let's see what's on winsupersite.com. Windows Phone device stats. Ooh, that's actually interesting. Let's see. for April 2014. I'm actually interested in this. Nokia Lumia 520, 34% of the market. Look at that. That's actually surprising that they have that big of a market share. What's the second one? The 920, the 625, the 620. Wow, 720 still has 5% of the market? And 710, 5% of the market.
Crazy.
That is insane.
720 was an awesome little phone.
Yeah.
Not a great camera, but
The 710, 5.1%.
yeah, that was not an awesome phone. But
That's actually a really good, fascinating stats on this. I would not have envisioned that the 720 still has 5% of the market.
yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Also, Paul does another podcast, Windows Weekly, with Mary Jo Foley and Leah Laporte every Wednesday at 2 p.m. East on twit.tv. You can check it out there. Guys, if you're watching this, subscribe to us. It's a big help when you do. We have a video podcast. We have an audio podcast. We're everywhere podcasts are available. You could subscribe on virtually any kind of device. Also, use our Amazon affiliate link. You could do so by going to gfq.co/Amazon, or if you're on our website, click on that Amazon banner. It helps us every time we need to do upgrades to the studio. Like right now, my monitor's dead on my encoding machine, so I have to buy a new monitor. I'm going to be buying it on Amazon, and I'm going to be using the Amazon affiliate money that we've generated over the last couple months to do this. It's a huge help, and it helps us out. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Zarian, of course, at The Rod on Twitter, and the GFQ Network is also on Twitter. Just go to GFQ Network. That's it, guys. We will all see you next week on What the Tech.